All right. So this week we pick back up with vaYiqra, chapter 25 and verse 50. It's possible we could get through the end of the chapter today, but I don't think I want to push that because we don't really get a summation here. The laws continue all the way to the end. Usually you have to Moshe, blah blah blah. And it's a nice little clean up job and closing out the chapter kind of a thing. But the laws continue all the way to the end here, and I don't cut anything short. If we can get through them, we will. If not, we may have just one or two next week. Who knows? But I just try not to push this stuff. So I'm going to back up to 49 since we're starting with 50. And if you recall, we were talking in 49 about who can be redeemed and by whom they can be redeemed, and the fact that they can redeem themselves. So 49 said, or his uncle, because other people had been named, so who needs redemption? His uncle can do it, or his nephew, uh, they can be redeemed, or from any member of his family, is how I put it in the translation, but it literally said from near flesh he. So that's any near family member. Um, from his family, he can be redeemed. And what you have there is an idiom. And it's a good way to see how you know when something is an idiom. First, it said, from near flesh he. Then that's followed by, from his family may he be redeemed. So, what you're supposed to get from that is when it said, from near flesh he, that's the idiom. And the meaning of that idiom is, from his near family he can be redeemed. Most of the time when you're reading something that kind of sounds like it's the same thing twice, it's because one way it's said is the idiom and the other way is the explanation of the idiom. And in biblical Hebrew, you can say the idiom first followed by the explanation, or you can give the explanation first followed by the idiom. There's no rule on that. You can do it either way, because you ultimately you come up with the same thing. So there's something right there is an actual idiom. Then it said, or attain hand he. So there's your idiom, and the meaning is, or if he is able to pay it off on his own. Attain hand he. In other words, if he's able to raise the money on his own or to work in some way that pays it off, then he's able to redeem himself. Of course, it ends with, he is also redeemed. Um, I'm not going to read all that other stuff that I said, but if you'll recall from last week, I was showing you that the Jews that come from the founder of the Jewish religion and the father of Judaism were all Chaldean. None of them were Jewish. Abraham, his wife Sarah, his brother, was it Lot, his brother or his cousin? Brother, cousin, whatever he was. They were all from Ur. U-R is not pronounced it's Ur. And you can roll your R if you want to. That made them all Chaldeans. And when they married off their children, they made sure that their children were married off to Chaldeans from the same place from which they had come. They were all Chaldean for a very long time. And so, what does that mean, that the Jews are of the Chaldean bloodline? No, Judaism is not a bloodline. It never has been a bloodline. Yes, there are people who try to connect it to that, But that's not what Judaism is. The only need for bloodline is to know which tribe you belong to. And even then, it's not exactly going to be bloodline. Um, for instance, if you talk about the tribe of the priests, right? Hello, they were all Chaldeans. Every tribe was a Chaldean of Chaldean descent, right? Yes. Well, at least for a while they were. And so to try to make it a bloodline, what are you talking about? Everybody in every tribe was from the same bloodline. So, but to the degree that your family converted into Judaism, just like all of those Chaldeans did that started this religion, there was a conversion. What's the conversion? You give up Christianity and become a Jew? No. Judaism is a religion, and it means if you're called a Jew or considered a Jew, that means you live according to God's law. The very word Yehudi proves that, if you actually know what it means biblically. Doesn't make any difference what it means now, because boy, has it been perverted in modern Hebrew. But anyway, they converted to obedience to God's law. And yes, the Torah, the first 5 books of the Bible written by Moshe, tell us very clearly that Abraham obeyed the laws, the statutes, the commands, the instructions. It says he did all of those things. Oh, but there wasn't one given. Obviously there was. God gave it to him. Maybe God was able to just give it to him verbally and he remembered it. Obviously, he passed it on to his children. Look it up. It says that he obeyed all of those things in, I think it's the book of Genesis where it says it. Look it up. You can find it. You can find out that he obeyed the laws, the statutes, the mitzvot, you name it. It says he did it all. And that's the conversion. All right. So that's what they call in the New Testament the conversion of the Jews. They weren't converting to Christianity, right? Because Christianity didn't exist in the New Testament period. Did you know that? It didn't. You don't even have Catholicism until you have, uh, Constantine. Anyway, let's get started with 50 here. Very literal English, and compute with acquired he from year make least he to it. And that's a very important thing there. To it. That's very important. To years the Jubilee and be silver from leasee with number years as days hired. And that's another very important one. He will be with it. All right. So we have vaYiqra, which is and compute. That's to think, to reckon. You're placing a value, establishing a value. When God reckoned, computed, Chishav, Avraham, he was reckoned righteous because he obeyed God's laws, his statutes, his commands, his instructions. Because, the Bible says he did. Just saying. Same word. So we're going to place a value, and the value that was placed on Abraham was that he was righteous. Then we have im konehu. So this is im is with or together. It's used in a lot of different ways. Moreover, at the same time, there's a lot of different ways that this is used, but you got to connect it to whatever it's connected to truly know what it means. Your next word, konehu, that's acquired he. So we would say he acquired. So you're going to compute with the accusation, with accusation is the wrong word, isn't it? Or is it acquisition? I could not get that word to come out of my brain and jump in my mouth. Mi shanat, from year, he machro, from the year he made the lease. Le'o, remember I'm doing that instead of saying lo, so you know it's not a negative. Ad, which is until. Shanat ha yovel, years of the Jubilee. Vehaya, and it will be, it will come to pass. There's a lot of different ways you can say that. Kesef, that's your word for silver. So money is usually the word that's translated into. So we have mi me karo, from the lease. Be mispar, so that's with a number. Shanim, so with the number of years. Kime, as days. As days, according to the days, would be the way we'd probably say that in English. Sahir, remember that's the hireling. That's someone who is hired. Yiye, we're back to it will be, it will come to pass. Emo, with it. Okay. Your translation. And compute the amount he must pay. The amount of his acquisition. Is that the right word? Yeah. Yes. So compute the amount that he must pay from the year he was leased. From the year he was leased. Then it's we had that to it to. I did not see that as I was going through this. Where was the to it to? Oh, the leo odd, to it to. Confused myself. So we did do that. Leo, and I said I did it that way now so that you won't think it's the negative article lo. And then we had odd, which is to or until, to that year, until that year. But it's important that we notice that this is leo odd, because that is important to our understanding of what's being said here, because we can really get off base. So we have, and compute the amount that he must pay from the year he was leased up to the year of the Jubilee. So now you've got all these sages who know literally nothing about the Hebrew language. They have never been in the land of Israel. They have never read a Hebrew Bible. They're reading Aramaic Bibles for the most part. My mom read an Arabic Bible. I don't know where he got that. Though there would have been some in his world. And then others read the Septuagint. And in the time of the 11, 12, 1300s, the Septuagint was finished. But the Septuagint that was around in the first century only had the first 5 books of the Bible, of the Hebrew Bible. That was the total Septuagint. When the rest of the Bible was finished in that work, nobody really knows. We don't know if it was done early on or later. Nobody knows how that thing got finished. But the original Septuagint was only the first 5 books of the Bible. So these people running around saying, yeah, when you read the New Testament, you know, these guys that wrote it were quoting from the Septuagint. No, no, they weren't. They couldn't have. The translators who took the Hebrew text that was written by those Jewish rabbim who wrote those New Testament letters, when they translated it into Greek later, 300-400 years later, well, yeah, they probably did look at the Septuagint. But the writer didn't do that. The translator did it. Let's get that straight, people, could we? Anywho, so you've got these guys who literally know nothing decide to make up Judaism, because from where they were living and looking, there was no Judaism. People wanted to live out a Jewish life. They just didn't know what it looked like. They were so far from home and so far removed from Judaism that all they knew is that, their parents and grandparents and great grandparents were Jewish. They passed down some scrolls and they passed down some, kippot probably in that time. Maybe it might be a little early for that, but they certainly would have passed down some talitot and some ziziot, maybe some candelabras, who knows? So they knew there was a connection, but nobody in that point in time really had any idea what it meant to be Jewish. So these guys thought they would oblige, and they'd go out and read a non-Jewish translation of the Bible, and from that, they would somehow invent Judaism. That's modern Judaism, by the way. It's where it comes from. So they don't know what they're looking at. They look at this and they say, see there, when somebody's to be redeemed, they have to pay from the time the person entered into that contract all the way until the Jubilee. Really? Do you think anybody would purchase somebody's contract, or somebody would sell themselves into to indentured servitude if they knew it was 42 years from now until Jubilee? Do you think that it'd be smart enough to wait until there's only a year or two left? It's not what this Hebrew text says. That's why it's so important to understand the to is because they're saying that's the absolute longest anyone can serve as a circumstances. If you hit the year of Jubilee, it makes sense. How much money is owed, that's the end of the line. So they don't have to pay beyond the Jubilee to get redeemed. They only have to pay up to the Jubilee if per se they're getting close to it. And that should become very clear in the next couple of rules here that we're going to read. So anyway, up to the year of the Jubilee, and the amount from the lease against the number of years according to the days of his hire, it is to be with him. I mean, that right there should have cleared it up. Do you hear what he's saying here? If the person signed a lease that's going to last for 7 years, and he's worked for 3 years, the Jubilee is next year, you should know that the redemption price is 1 year's pay. That's it. It should be that clear. If, on the other hand, they signed up for a 7-year lease, they're 3 years into that lease, and the Jubilee is 49 years from now, let's see. 7 minus 3. You should be able to do that yourself in your own brain, right? You know how many years are left. You do not pay all the way up to the Jubilee. Dalzina Wagner had a note in there. When an Israelite is sold to a non-Israelite who is living under Israelite sovereignty and must follow Israelite law, the Israelite servant is not released after 6 years of labor, but when he is redeemed or in the Jubilee year. Wow. No, that is not right. They based that because the sages looked at that and said you had to pay all the way to the Jubilee. So, of course, Drazen and Wagner said that. Now, I'm sure they're probably quoting somebody else. Or hopefully they know better than that. But that's not what this Hebrew text is not saying this in any way, shape, or form. It's just telling you that is the ultimate cutoff date. No one can go past the Jubilee period, end of story. No one, not even a Jewish Israelite who's indentured to some non-Jewish Israelite. No, God is not a respecter of person. Non-Jews do not get a better or different set of rules than Jews. And Jews don't get a better or different set of rules than non-Jews. It's the same for everyone. God has already said that in this chapter, among other places. So the sages are wrong. The price set for redemption is based on the amount owed and subtracted by the amount of time left. The release in the Yovel, in what they call the Jubilee, is a limit on how long a Jew can be forced to work off a debt. It cannot go beyond that. Okay, so our next verse, 51. If yet much in years, to mouth return redeemed it, from silver cost it. So we start off with Im, and this is if you can be lo, behold, you can even get that, truly, certainly, all of that stuff, just like the other stuff we said a while ago. If is kind of a catch-all word. You can do all kinds with that word, all kinds of things. Then we have ode, which is that, remember that to something to, whatever that was? Ode is your word for yet or until, right? It's a more formal spelling, I think. So you have if, yet, rabot. There's your word rav. That's much. It's multius. So you do realize that's the title of someone who is called a rabbi. Your title is actually Rav. It's not rabbi. So why would they say, multius or many, numerous, great? It's usually translated actually as great, I think. Why would they do that? Well, because the rabbi, the guy who's called the Rav, is great in education. He needs to be great in education to have that kind of title. But they also called kings and governors and stuff like that would also be called Rav back in the day. Doesn't go way far back. That's more of a first century this way thing than it is prior, but it is in the Hebrew Bible earlier than that. Very early on, just wasn't common. So the word is used more for it was large, it was vast, it was great, right? Not so much about a person, though that is the word that they use for the title of a rabbi, the real title, because Rab is the title. And then if that Rab is your teacher, then you call him rabbi. The V sound gets softened to a B sound, but it is the same word. Bashanim, so that's in years, year in plural. Lefichen, um, that's Fi is the mouth, and it's in the feminine, and they've added the lamed to the front of it, so it's really two mouth. And two mouth is an idiomatic way in Hebrew of saying accordingly. To the mouth is how the Bible people said accordingly. Do it accordingly. Um, so you have things like pay, el pay, mouth to mouth. That meant you spoke face to face. You have pay echad, one mouth. Well, that meant you spoke in unison. Uh, Bimope, in from it mouth, which meant you were speaking very loudly. Al p, upon the mouth, which meant accordingly, or it was a command, according to a commandment, more specifically. Bepive is in mouth he, literally, but it means you like the taste of something, or he likes the taste of something. How about mepe el pay? From mouth to mouth is not quite like the other one. This is talking about generally a two-edged sword. Um, kepe, which would be as mouth, would be according to a command. That's a real common one there. Bepishin knive, in mouth years his, uh, according to his years, which could, even that can mean several different things. Ani kepiach le'el, I as mouth, you to God, literally, but that means I like you. I, comma, like you, am created by God. Ani kepecha le'el, I like you am created by God. There's so many more. I mean, you remember me talking about that here recently, how when it's body parts and we start adding these little, just a single letter or even a short word to the front and to the end of these, now you have these very common sayings from the Bible. It's just jam packed with stuff like that. Then we have yashab. Remember, that's to turn, return, metaphorically to be converted. If you return to living according to the law, you can say that you have been converted. If, on the other hand, you are a non-Jew and you're converting to the religion of these Jews who are out here speaking what they call the gospel, what are you returning? Just saying, probably it's not what you think it is. Maybe one of these days I'll tell you what that means. The next word, geulato, so that's redeem. He, or he redeemed. Mi kesef, from money. Mik nato, the cost, going to redeem the cost of it with money, or from money, more specifically. So your translation, if there are yet many years, accordingly, because remember this, to the mouth. If there are many years, accordingly, he will return the redemption money from the purchase of it. So if the person has paid you a bunch of money and your redeeming winds up to where um, he's overpaid you, he has to give the money back. He has to give you back the difference. He doesn't get to keep it. Just right now, how that exactly would happen, I don't know. That is what it just said. So Drauzine and Wagner said his redemption price is based on the number of years of service as calculated in verse 50. Okay. That's a lot of help, guys. Thanks very much. Sorry. That just cracked me up. Tickled my funny bone. All right, so we have, we're looking at 52. And if little left over in years, 2 years, the Jubilee, and compute to he his mouth, as mouth, accordingly, year his return, redeem he. So ve'im, so and if, so already we've been told, so if there's too much, he's got to give it back. And now it's saying me'at, so and if there's too little, nish'ar, if there's too little left over, bashanim, in the years, ad, which is till or two, shanat, to the years, hayovel, to the years of the ram, to the years of the Jubilee, ram, a ram's horn, vechishav. So now you got to do the compute thing. You got to figure out what the difference is. Leo kepi. So to it as mouth. According to what the deal is, how many years have been worked off, how many years are owed or have been overworked, who knows? But it's accordingly. It's to the mouth, which means accordingly. Shanaiv, accordingly to his years. Yashiv, return. Someone's going to return something here. Et gulato, the redemption price. And if there are few years left to the year of Jubilee, also compute to him accordingly his year of return by his redemption. So if there's just a few years left of the Jubilee and he owes a whole lot more years, sorry, you can only compute it up to the Jubilee. So what have these two sentences said? They've said, if there's not much owed, you don't take how much is owed up to the Jubilee. You subtract what's left over from the Jubilee. If, on the other hand, he owes more than what could be paid between now and the Jubilee, you have to wipe out everything beyond the Jubilee. That's what they should have gotten. And had they have gotten those things, you wouldn't have those things said like what the Drauzine and Wagner were quoting from someone. I just apparently didn't write down who said that. Because I know it was beyond anything they said. That's something that the sages said, because the sages simply didn't get it. They thought that if you were going to sell yourself into indentured servitude and they were to take you on as a servant and you had to serve that guy for 49 years, and when the 7 years were up, you had to continue working for that guy, and then another 7 years are up and you're still continue working for that guy. Why would guys say stuff like that and not notice that these two sentences said otherwise? Well, if somebody owes you a bunch of money, maybe you don't want it to say that. But God made it real clear. 6 years is your maximum. Period. End of story. Makes no difference how much is or is not owed. Makes no difference how long anything goes. And if you've loaned some guy so much money that he would have to work beyond the Jubilee. Sorry, too bad. It doesn't work that way. It does two things. One, it makes it so that somebody who's making a loan like that doesn't make stupid loans. And two, it makes it so somebody who's maybe not all that honest, not able to enslave another human being. That was the whole point. It wasn't that you could have a slave, it was that you couldn't. Okay. Um, we're looking at 53 now, very short one here. As hired year in year, he will be with it, not he rule they with cruelty to eyes you. Now, this has, of course, been said a couple of times already in this chapter alone. But so we start with Sachir, that's your hireling, that's your indentured servant, that's you know what that is. It's certainly not a slave. You hire someone to drive your car for you. Does that mean that person's your slave? No, but they are your servant. They're your driver. You hire someone to clean your house for you. Is that person your slave? No, but they are your maid servant. Um, you hire someone to take care of your lawn for you. Is that person your slave? No, but that person is your servant. I don't know how Judaism got so far off on this and why they had to act like God gave people slavery and the sages had to take it away and outsmart God. Oh, Lord. Because that's exactly what the sages say, especially Maimon. Okay, so we are starting off with the Sachir, the hireling. Shana, which is just the word for year. Beshana. So you have year in year. Yiyeh, he will be, or it will be, it will come to pass. Imo leo yire denu. So what was said there? So year in year, it will be with him, not he rule they. They will not be ruled over beferech, with tyranny, oppression. Um, you will not be cruel. You will not crush their spirit. You will not crush their inner person. You will not talk down to them. You will not yell at them. You will not scream at them. You will not treat them wrong. And these are people you hired that you're paying money. Le enecha. So that's two eyes, you. And it does the same thing with the word for mouth, right? Anything, eyes, ears, mouth. These things are added to these words. And so you have in your presence before you, that sort of thing. So we have, as a contractor, that's the word I think I finally settled on for that word, the contractor. Year after year, he will be with him. And that's assuming that the deal takes a number of years, the job takes a number of years to complete. And that's not really what it means. It just means from beginning to end of the contract, he'll be with you. the guy is supposed to finish the job he started. Year after year, he will be with him. However, and I've had to throw the however in here so that it'll make sense in English. We don't need that in Hebrew, not biblical Hebrew, but we do need that in English. However, he, speaking of the boss, will not rule over them, that be the contractors, with cruelty before you. Well, now we need to know who the you is. Any Jew anywhere. That's the you. The bait added to a repeated word indicates again. In this case, year and year and year, year and again another year. Anyway, I hope that made some sense. The Drauzine and Wagner said that this verse could be translated in two contradictory ways. And I don't think I ever figured out what the contradictions were. I don't see any contradiction in a good translation, so maybe that's the problem. Okay, then we have 54. Okay, now I'm starting to run close here. And if not, he redeemed with these, and he go out in years the Jubilee, he and sons his with he. We've actually kind of had this verse already, I think, but we have ve'im, so, and if, lo, in this case, that's the not, and if not, gigael, if he is not redeemed, if someone hasn't bought out his contract, be'ele, with these, vaYiqra, with these, he goes out. He's going to go out with these. We're going to be told what these are here in a moment. Beshanat, in the year Hayovel. So he's going to go out with these. We haven't been told what these are at the moment, but in the year of the Jubilee, he's going out with whatever these are. Who means he. Uvanav, he and his sons. Going to go out. So if he has sold himself and his sons into this situation, when the Jubilee hits, he and his sons are going out. In fact, it wouldn't matter who it is. Of course, we say sons, but the word is children. He and his children are going out with him. I do believe that's our next word, emo, with him. And if he is not redeemed in these years, so if somehow he has not paid off what he owes, because that's really what that means. If he has not paid off his debt in these years that he's been working for you, in the year of the Jubilee, he and his entire family, if they're all in trying to pay this off, because the court could have done that. Normally, that's not the way it worked, but the court could have done it if the debt was really, really deep. But he and his kids, they're leaving in the Jubilee. Why? Because everybody leaves in the Jubilee. Under the Constitution given to the Jewish people by the Almighty God, everybody leaves on the Jubilee. Nobody owes anyone anything. Drauzine and Wagner wrote, to what does the plural these refer? I think I've already answered that question. All right, let's see if we can do the one last one, right? Yeah, we're on number 55. Look at there. I wasn't sure if we could do this or not. Your literal, for to me, children, Yisrael, servants, servants. They that make go out me, them from land meets Raim, I, Yahweh, God's you. So we have Kili, B'nai Yisrael. For, and this is God speaking, for to me, the children of Yisrael, Avadim, Avadai. They are servants of servants. If you don't know, that's the lowest of all servants. Moshe was a servant of servants. He was not the beloved son of the Pharaoh. He did not build cities for the Pharaoh. He was a servant to most likely an Egyptian servant, or at least one that had been in Egypt longer than him. But he was a servant to a servant, right? And God's saying something about the Israelis here being servants of servants. This is Hem Asher Zeti, these servants of servants. God just now said, I made them go out. Otam, which is them, Me'eretz, from the land, meets Raim, from the land of Egypt. Ani Yahweh, Elohechem, I am Yahweh, your God. So here's our translation. Because the children of Israel were servants of servants, I, who released you of your debt. Now, what did he really say? He said, I made you go out from the land of Egypt. I released you from your debt. I, Yahweh, your God. To be a servant of a servant is actually, by biblical standards, a curse. In Genesis 9:25, Noah cursed his son, saying, a servant of servants he will be to his brothers because of his sin. The children of Yisrael had committed great sin, and I mean massive, horrendous sin. And they wound up paying the price for that sin as servants of servants, as cursed people in the land of Egypt. God Almighty made them go out. What did he say? What's he saying? I paid your ransom. God is our Redeemer. I have run out of time and out of stuff to say. Shalom v'shalom, everybody.
The blessing, vaYiqra. Yevarecha Yahweh v'yish merecha. Ya'er Yahweh panai v'lecha v'hunecha. Yisa Yahweh panai v'lecha v'yasim lecha shalom. And in English, may Yahweh cause you to lie down so that you may rest. May he touch and caress you. May he prepare you for what is ahead. May he watch over you. May he keep you from harm. May he cause goodness to grow in you and take away the bad. May he arrange your life and cause you to flourish. May he cheer you up and gladden your heart. May he cause his light to shine through you. May he show you tenderness, favor, and love in his presence. May he show you kindness and be delicate towards you. May he show you his generosity, mercy, compassion, and desire for you as it comes forth from the depths of his soul. May he lift you out of your pit and deliver you from the things that hold you prisoner. May he draw you to his chest and cast his eyes on yours. May he show you his love and desire for you as he cradles you in his arms. May he bear your punishment and pardon you of your sin. May he take you for his bride. May he establish a foundation in you. May he place his name on your heart and mind and make your body his temple. May you be his treasure. May you always be on his mind. May he draw you near and comfort you when you are afraid. May he assure you there is nothing to fear because he is with you. May you and all that concerns you be at peace because he is your friend. Amen.